the Infectious Scouting Podcast, Virtuoso style here, coming inside your living room, giving you a sneak peek preview of what you can expect next week for our NFL Draft Bible live stream coverage. We'll be on 7 consecutive days starting April the 20th, running during the draft, and then also our post-draft recap show on Sunday, April 26th. It's a can't stop, won't stop affair. It's a Draft Bible extravaganza, bonanza, live from the Jersey Shore. We got Russell Landy checking in from the Chicago headquarters. How are you, brother?
Life is good, man. It's a beautiful day. The snow is falling. It's amazing. I don't know what's going on. Every time I speak to Rick now, it seems to snow. So I'm not sure what's going on.
It's the end of it's a sign of the apocalypse.
Exactly.
Producer Dakota Follett's got the snow as well in the Midwest. And, of course, Ryan Roberts checking in from Jersey he's got his big boy pants on for today's show, I know.
Always do, Rick. You keep saying virtuoso every time, man. That's the word of the week, so let's get it going.
Let's rock and roll. So today we're going to give you a little sneak peek preview. You know, we do this fun contest every year. We've been doing it for the past several years now on the Huddle Report, where you submit your top 100, and, you know, it's a contest to see who gets the most players selected, drafted within the top 100 picks. And, you know, we've been in that 80 to 85 range consistently. And
that's a shame, missing 80 to 85 players. That's tough.
Hey, what can I tell you? I'm waiting for the top 250 contest to come out because I'd love to see 50 board against others. But for this exercise, I've sent Russ and Ryan a sneak peek of the NFL Draft Bible final top 100. That'll be online. And we're going to debate, you know, who's too high, who's too low, and who are we missing type of thing. And, again, NFLDraftBible.com will have the entire list. It might get tweaked after this episode. So let's start it off with Russell Landy. And I know he's quick to point out all my flaws, Russ. So tell me, who am I too low on in this top 100, a.k.a. who are you a player higher on than others?
Well, firstly, I don't know if it's you so much that's too low on him. I think it just may be everybody in general. Just a player that I really think is going to be better is the Zach Vaughn kid out of Wisconsin. He's the kid I've been hyping all year when we've been doing these podcasts. I really think this is the second best pure pass rusher in this draft behind Chase Young. He may not fit exactly what I think everybody is looking for in terms of size and where he's going to fit. But I think when you look at this kid's in terms of initial quickness, ability to defeat blocks, close on the quarterback, chase plays down in pursuit. I mean, this kid to me is a special guy going forward. I think he's solid off the ball, but I think his special trait is going to get that quarterback. And I think if he goes to a team that uses him correctly, you could be talking about a guy that, not as a rookie, but I think long-term is going to be a very productive pass rusher.
Yeah, you know, you're hearing Bond create a little bit of buzz. You know, Ryan, before I get your thoughts, you know, Russ, he was flagged at the combine for diluted urine sample. Now, to me, this could be someone just trying to add water weight. I try to give the player the benefit of the doubt, and you know, he hasn't been proven guilty of anything. How much is that going to factor into his draft grade, do you think?
Well, two things. One is teams are going to go to their area scouts and say, what do you know on the kid? Talk to the school. We need to know everything about him. Because generally, if a kid fails a test at the combine, he's probably maybe not failed one at his school, but there's been indications from people there that he's done it before. So that's why you want to talk to the people at the school. If the people at Wisconsin go to bat and tell the scouts off the record, hey, this kid's clean, you don't have to worry, he's not a kid who's going to do that stuff, then you're probably okay. The other thing, I'll just tell a funny story, is I remember a kid who did fail a steroid test, and I remember our GM, his response was, I don't really care that a guy fails a test for performance-enhancing drugs. He goes, because I want my guys to get better. He goes, I'm just concerned that he's still using steroids. There's a lot of stuff better out there. He goes, it tells me, is this kid stupid? So that's just a whole side note, because he didn't fail a test for that. He just got the diluted urine. I'm sure teams are just doing their work. They're talking to everybody at Wisconsin, trying to find out, is there anything we need to be concerned about? And if anything gets mentioned by the people at Wisconsin that, hey, this is a kid who's done everything, he's always skirted the edges to try to gain weight, that might raise a red flag. But as long as they say that this kid's never done any of that, I doubt it's going to have a dramatic effect on his draft status.
Ryan, I recorded a segment for our good friends over at Giants.com last night, and they were hoping Bond would be around at 36 on the second round come around. I said, not so fast, my friend. I think he'll be off the board by then. The way that Russ is talking about his role, it kind of reminds me of like the New England Patriots would find a great way to make use of his skill sets. I think they're at 23. I think he's sitting somewhere at 26 or 27 on our big board. Ryan, where do you kind of see him coming off the board here?
Yeah, I feel like New England would be a perfect fit. I think the Ravens would be a perfect fit, be able to use the versatility that Russ was kind of talking about, some off-ball stuff. He could work in different alignments as a rusher. He kind of fits that New England Patriots Kyle Van Noy role the last couple of years, Sam Backer, but then you could use him in a lot of different areas, different split schemes, that kind of thing. I think he's a pretty safe bet to go late first rounds. I worry a little bit about him. We're right outside of Philly, Rick. So we know, we got the Hassan Reddick deal a couple years ago out of Temple. It kind of fits the same role, mostly on the edge during college. Really dynamite athlete, but that transition to off ball in a more extensive role sometimes is a really hit or miss thing. That takes a lot of natural instincts. Does this kid have it? We'll see. I feel like, at worst, he's a nice situational rusher early on. It's the big question mark for me is just whether he's going to be able to make that full-time transition.
See, I wouldn't let him transition. I wouldn't
let
him play off the ball. If I'm a 34 team, I just put him as an outside guy and just say, you're rushing. 80% of the time, you're going forward. Why screw around? What does he do well? He rushed the quarterback. The other stuff, he's okay. His strength to me is go get the quarterback. Well, that's the most important thing on defense, so I'm going to let this kid go get the quarterback.
All right, well, valid points by Ryan Roberts and Russell Landy. Our super producer, Dak Follett, hitting us with the Zach Bond highlights there, and we're going to have all kinds of great coverage, roll-in video highlights throughout the week of our draft coverage, special guests, scouts galore, player interviews. We can't wait. Ryan, hit us with a player that you're higher on.
Yeah, so, he moved up on our board pretty significantly from where he was, but I've been a Willie Gay Jr. fan from Mississippi State for a while now. I was called crazy in mid-January. I put him as my linebacker 2 behind Isaiah Simmons. Just on film, now, the off-the-field stuff, I heard it checked out pretty well at the Combine. He had, it was academic issues, all that kind of stuff. As long as that stuff checks out, on film, he has some of the most best flashes in this linebacking class in a pretty, underwhelming linebacker class, really, I think you would call it after Isaiah Simmons. So I've been trying to find that guy that I really love. Not as high on, and Patrick Queen is some. Kenneth Murray is a little inconsistent for me at times. So I've been a big Willie Gay fan. I still think 66 is a little too low because I think after running 4.46, 39.5-inch vert with the flashes he has on film, I think he could be a guy that might go early second round.
Yeah, and the measurables are hard to dispute. There's some off-the-field stuff, I believe, that, teams will have to really research there. But I spoke to my guy, Von Hudson's, the other day about him, and he said, look, Rick, any scout that went into that school, this guy passes the eye test. Not only does he have production, but he just looks the part. That physical build that he possesses on top of that 4.4 speed, I think it could be a dark horse round 1 candidate, quite honestly. It wouldn't shock me. So Willie Gay Jr. Might have to be bumped up the board. But at least we got it right, Russell. 66, he's in our top 100. Give me another guy here that you're higher on than others.
For me, to me, it's Ezra Cleveland. That's the guy. And, it really comes down to one simple thing, and I know I've told you this before, and it's not – and trust me, I'm not saying you're making a mistake. I just think overall. But one of the things I was told early on in my scouting career is when you're talking about offensive linemen in particular, but generally players overall, is it's easier to take a great athlete and have him gain 20 to 30 pounds than to have a big guy who's a bad athlete become a good athlete. So with Cleveland, I look at him and I see a kid that's got great feet, natural athleticism. He can bend. He can get out in space and block effectively. And, yeah, is he real strong? No. He has issues with that. Is he big and powerful? No. But I'll work with that. He is competitive. I don't think he's a guy that's a finesse guy. I just don't think he's a physically powerful man right now. So give me a kid that's competitive with great athletic ability. We'll get him into the NFL. We'll spend 2 years working with him, have him gain some weight, improve his playing strength, I think this kid, his future is really high because finding offensive tackles who can slide out easily and protect the corner, but also can step through and block on the second level, can get out and pull, they're hard to find. And that's why, to me, this kid has a chance to be special. I really think end of that first round, there's a good chance this kid's going to get jumped up.
I'm hearing he could even be gone as high as the middle of the first round. And I think now what you have here is after those big four offensive tackles, which is Becton, Wirfs, Thomas, and Wills, then you've got the second tier. And I think any four of the next tier could go in the first round as well, which now includes the other Georgia tackle, Isaiah Wilson, skyrocketing up here, Ezra Cleveland, who you just discussed, and then Josh Jones and Austin Jackson. Those are the tier 2 offensive tackles. And again, my point was, hey, the Giants go grab Simmons, best player available, hope that one of those tier 2 tackles slide down to 36. And that would be my play if I was the Giants. But, hey, Ryan, I know you were a big fan of Ezra Cleveland when you scouted him for the NFL Draft Bible publication. I think Russ did a great job there breaking him down. Who else do you have for us in terms of a guy that you're higher on?
So, I mean, I'm going to stick with offensive lineman a little bit. I'm a little higher on Matt Pert from UConn than some, I would say. I feel like he's in that second tier. I don't see why he's not being talked about a lot more in that second tier with the Ezra Clevelands, with the Josh Jones. On film, I mean, he's a right tackle, 6'8". He has all the length in the world. He's a pretty special athlete in space, and he gets after it in the run game. I feel like he might be a guy that might start to get pushed up a little bit, especially if we see the run on tackles that we think we're going to see. If Cleveland goes in the first round, Josh Jones, we see another tackle or two, Austin Jackson, guys like that are pushed up into that mid to late first round conversation. I feel like Matt Pert might be somewhere in that high second, mid second round bracket, and I feel like some people might be missing it out on him a little bit.
Yeah, I understand it. I get it. I think he's a little bit more of a developmental. I thought he was even a step slower than Josh Jones at the Senior Bowl from what I saw, but that's really the only kind of side-by-side comparison. I didn't get a chance to go to UConn this year, so I didn't really break down Pert, but I noticed at the Senior Bowl, he just seemed a step slower. All the tools are there. I like the upside. I like the size, and I agree with you. I think he is going to get drafted higher than what we have him ranked, which probably is somewhere around 65. But yeah, I mean, he could be off the board in the top 40 or 50 picks, no doubt about it. Ryan Roberts, Russell Landy, Rick Saratella here, breaking it down with the super producer, Dak Follett, working our highlight film packages. Russ, give me a guy that you're lower on in our top 100.
Well, firstly, I'm just trying to figure out, Ryan, I mean, is it just me or you sort of trying to figure out there are a lot of schools that my man Rick made it to that are a lot farther away than UConn. I mean, UConn's not that far from Jersey. I mean, come on now.
I know, man. When I first started talking to Rick, I really got associated with. I think he was out in like Utah or Washington or something. I'm like, all right, you can't get down to Connecticut though, apparently, or up to Connecticut.
I mean, maybe he needs a new map. I don't know. It's actually pretty close.
UConn, you better start recruiting.
All right. So who am I lower on? I'm lower on Jordan Love. I mean, that to me is the one that I just don't get. I mean, I know he's unbelievably gifted, big arm, can make throws literally from any foot position, from off-balance situations, super competitive, does a lot of great things for you. I just don't see the accuracy and consistency. I think if I'm sitting there in the second or third round and I have a quarterback coach that's really shown himself to be able to work on mechanics and improve accuracy, then I jump on this kid in a heartbeat. But in the first round, I mean, you're talking about a kid who might have to be thrown right in. And to me, playing before he can work on some of those smaller things, I just think it's going to be hard for him to become as consistent as is necessary to be a high-end starter. That's my concern with him. It's not about physical talent. It's not about character intangibles. It's about the little things, being more consistently accurate. And that, to me, is a very scary thing because the majority of quarterbacks who don't make it in the NFL, a lot of it comes down to accuracy. And that's what I want to see more of from this kid.
Well, that's something I think that can be honed in a little bit in terms of his decision-making, and he did lose a supporting cast, so I think he tried to do a bit too much. But we're going to have a great point counterpoint, because I know Ryan is on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm somewhere in between. I know Ryan's very high on him. Russ, you're kind of low on him. I'm somewhere in between. When I saw him, I wasn't that impressed, but I also saw glimpses. I saw flashes. I saw throws that said, hey, I get it. I understand.
Yep, I get that.
You know, and I think a big part of it is because there are so many teams in dire need of a quarterback. I mean, we've got to bring somebody to the dance. I mean, I need a date here to the prom. I gotta marry somebody here. So I get it. Like, you know, if Tua is an injury risk, if you don't like Herbert and Burrow, you don't have a shot at.
Yep. I understand the reasoning behind it. I'm just saying, to me, I look at this kid as needing a lot more work than a guy that I usually think of in the first round.
Oh, I agree. And I think, you know, having him play behind a Gardner Minshew or a Drew Brees or even a Ben Roethlisberger for a year would be outstanding. Ryan, however, I believe that, you know, we took the under on our prop show, 19.5. I think Jordan Love is going to go ahead of either Tua or Herbert come draft day. I think people are going to be stunned how high Jordan Love goes.
I agree. You know, I've been on board with Love over Herbert for now. I just feel like I get the inconsistencies. This past year was not great. It just really was not. But when you couple the talents with, when you hear him speak, when you hear all of his character, and you hear how people rave about him as a student of the game, I feel like there are things that you can get away with. I feel like there's a ceiling. People always talk about a ceiling, but I feel like you can see the ceiling. I feel like you can really see it, because he's a guy that, I agree, he's a redshirt candidate. I would love the perfect situation. Maybe it's a New Orleans Saints, somebody like that, like you kind of mentioned, that can sit behind Breeze, learn from him, and then he can kind of pick up, you know, hopefully where someone like that leaves off. Obviously, that's not an easy task. But I'll tell you, for my next guy, I will see your quarterback, and I'll raise you one, Russ. I know you're not high on him either. I don't think Rick is either. But Jalen Hurts is like on, I think, number 35 on this list, and he might very well end up going pretty close to that standard when this draft is said and done. But I am all the way out. I'm missing it with Jalen. I get the athletic traits. I get that he has the character, the toughness. I understand it, but I feel like there's a prerequisite amount of arm talent and ability to, you know, affect the game as a passer, and I just don't think he has it. I'm struggling with him so much. I could see, like I said before, I could see a couple situations where he could potentially be successful. Maybe, again, a Saints team. I just keep going back to the Saints because I feel like they would curtail their offense to fit what he does well. But I just don't think there's too many situations where he is going to be that guy early in his career where you can depend on him to play a significant amount of snaps.
Yeah,
you know,
go
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say, I think he's more in that developmental category once you get beyond those first-round quarterbacks. A guy like Hurts and also a guy like Eason, I think these are guys that you do want to mold and hope that they develop like with Dak Prescott. I think Hurts can be a potential starter down the road, but I think he's at least 2 years, maybe 3 years away, Russ.
You know, to me, he's a really great case study for sort of what is the NFL now, because I think part of it is also teams are looking around saying, okay, a lot of us had real questions about whether Lamar Jackson could be a good enough thrower of the ball, not athlete, not character, just thrower of the ball to be successful. And I think they see how Greg Roman worked with Lamar Jackson, worked with Coach Harbaugh to really develop an offense that allowed Lamar Jackson to not just be okay, but to really be a star, despite not being an unbelievably accurate thrower. He was able to be accurate to an area as opposed to pinpoint accurate, and their offense was obviously unbelievable. So I think a lot of NFL coaches are saying, well, can we do that with our offense and make a guy like Jalen Hurts, who, similar to Lamar Jackson, is unbelievable in terms of character and intangibles, tremendously smart, is going to outwork everybody, is a very good athlete, has a strong arm, but the accuracy is the issue. Well, can we make an offense work around all the great traits that he brings to the table? And I think that's part of why you're seeing him move up, is the hope that you can sort of work an offense around him in today's NFL. I don't know if it can be successful, just as I look at Lamar Jackson and see the great success he's had in the regular season. but haven't seen it in the playoffs against great defenses. So it's an interesting case study. I think Hurts is going to be a guy that is going to have a hard time succeeding without being consistently accurate unless they can really devise an offense around his skills.
Yeah, no, I think it depends a lot where he winds up and lands is going to dictate his success. No doubt about that. Ryan Roberts, Russ Landy, Rick Saratella here on the Infectious Scouting Podcast. Virtuoso style. We're going to be here all week long next week, breaking it down for the people, live reaction, player interviews, and guests. We're working our way through the NFL Draft Bible Top 100 that will be posted online. Russ, who else are you a little bit lower on here on this list?
You know, the kid Shane Lemieux, the offensive lineman from Oregon, you don't have him very high. You have him down towards the bottom of the third round type guy. And I get that that's not real high, but, you know, this is the guy that – and all the Oregon linemen sort of fall in that category for me of the ones that are draft eligible, which is I just don't see elite guys. I see really good college football players. I just look at him and I see toughness. I see smarts. I see limited athletic ability. And I just wonder, how is he going to handle the quick change of direction, the explosive guys off the ball that he's going to have to deal with in the NFL that he didn't have to deal with in college. So I love Lemieux. If I could get him in the 5th or 6th round, great value. I think he's ideally a backup guy in the NFL. But in the 3rd round, to me, it's a little bit high because those, to me, for offensive linemen, I want guys that are both athletic and super tough and super smart. And when I look at Lemieux, I see super tough, super smart. All those things are great. I just don't see a really good all-around athlete.
Yeah, you know, it's tough, and I kind of was on the fence of including him, but then you try to say, hey, well, I don't have any guards on day one. I've got, like, maybe 2 guards in the entire top 100. I know there's
exactly right.
2. Like, who's it going to be? You know,
and there's going to be some that go, and that's the whole thing. You're right. There's going to be 3 or 4 guards that go in the first 2 days of the draft. Who are they going to be?
And, you know, I think the interesting stat, too, I'm not a big stat guy, but guards, more than any other position, have the highest percentage of re-signing their second contract with the original team that drafted them. And I think NFL teams do value that on day 2. So, yeah, trying to find the guards, though, that are worthy of that top 100 discussion is tough.
And he has a lot of the characteristics, especially intangibles, that teams love. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's hardest worker on your team, great in the weight room. He's going to do all those things for you. And a lot of guys like that survive and become productive, solid starters on the O-line because you don't have to be a superstar athlete in the inside. But I just look at it and say, okay, yes, he fits a lot of those things, but is this a guy that maybe I could get in the 4th or 5th as opposed to the 3rd? That's the only thing, my only question. I love the way he plays.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. Ryan, who else are you lower on, my man?
I was looking at Cam Brown, the off-ball backer from Penn State. I think he was in at 56 on our final 100. I like him as a developmental player. I mean, sort of what Russ is saying, like that same range, like 4th, 5th, 6th round. Like I can get on board with that. I see the size. I see the 6'5" length, the 34-inch arms. And I felt like he was a guy, you know, got the Senior Bowl invite. I felt like he was going to go to the Combine and really blow it up a little bit, you know. And then he goes to the Combine. He doesn't test nearly as well as I thought he was going to. So now I just feel like that may have stalled his draft evaluation a little bit because guys are going to be banking for him on the deep potential, right? They're going to look at him and say, this is what he can be. Now, is he quite the athlete that we thought he was on tape? Maybe just a really long athlete that just has those long strides. I like him as a developmental piece. I just can't really get on board with this somewhere in the 2nd round range.
No, it's interesting because, you know, I didn't expect him to test too crazy, and I don't know what he ran. I'm trying to look it up here.
I think it was 4.72, I think, was the official time, which isn't a terrible time, but I for a guy that's banking on being an athletic developmental guy, I was hoping somewhere in the 4.6s.
Well, I get it. But, you know, at the same point, I think, you know, when you look at that body frame and you look at his style of play, I mean, Cam Brown plays grown man football. And, you know, I think this is a guy – I believe, quite honestly, is going to come in and compete for a starting job from day one. I think this guy's going to start for a long time in this league. And now he's one of those guys that didn't run the shuttle or the 3-cone at the Combine. He was those Penn State guys get advised by Coach James Franklin there to run on their home turf. And that's a trend that he needs to start changing. But, you can see some of the explosion there in the 35.5-inch vert, the 10'3" broad at, 233 pounds. Yeah, he didn't test it exactly how we thought it would go. But, I'm still a fan. I'm still a believer that he goes inside that top 100. Russ, I think you're on board with my Cam Brown crush. Are you as high on him as me, or are you on board with Ryan?
No, I got to go with you on this one, Rick. I mean, this is a kid that we talked about him during the year a few times because I didn't know a whole lot about him before this season. And every time I watched Penn State, I was just so impressed. Here's this long, linear kid who can cover tight ends, who's smooth and fluid, moves easily. This is a guy that really just impressed me in terms of, is he an explosive, dynamic guy in terms of going to chase down the fastest guys? No, he's not. He doesn't have rare speed. But when I see this kid move around in space, his ability to flip his hips without getting out of control, I just say, wow, this kid, especially because he's got that length, he's going to be able to cover most tight ends in man-to-man coverage. He's going to be able to use his length to break up passes. I just really like him. Now, I agree. There are some issues. He lacks that rare speed, and he is long and linear. So if a blocker gets on him, he's not a powerful kid. You can eliminate him. But when I'm looking in that third-round area, second-round area, this is a guy that, to me, has a chance to be a starter early in his career. I really like this kid. I think there's a lot of upside with a kid that's this fluid and smooth out in space.
And, anyone who's tuned into the Infectious Scouting Podcast throughout the year knows that, hey, I had a chance to see him against Purdue. I always tell the story of
so you found Penn State, but you didn't find Connecticut?
Yeah, well, Penn State recruits, brother. Don't get your weight up.
Oh, they recruit all the Jersey guys. That's why.
Yeah, all the Jersey guys. Cam Brown might be a Jersey guy. And, the way he shut down Bryson Hopkins, to me, this is the guy that can offset the Travis Kelce's, the George Kittles.
That's a great example.
Hey, he might not have timed fast, but Bryson Hopkins, I think, ran 4.49, and he had no problem shutting his ass down. And I think he could be a great asset at the next level. So, great perspective here. Ryan Roberts, Russ Landy, Rick Saratella. Now the hard part, gentlemen. Who are we missing? Who are we missing from this top 100 list? We'll start it off with you, Russ.
To me, it's a real tough one, and you're in this much more than I am because you're talking to the people trying to figure out guys moving up, moving down, and the kid Greenard from Florida. When I see Florida play, this guy is an impact pass rusher, and I watch this kid, and I understand he may not be the biggest, and he's so long and linear. I cannot figure out for the life of me how he's not getting mentioned in the group of the upper echelon pass rushers. Because when I get outside of Chase Young, and after my guy Zach Vaughn, who probably isn't that high on everybody's board, I don't see a special elite pass rusher outside of Chase Young and Vaughn. So it's like, okay, who's the next guy? There's the Gross Matos kid from Penn State, very athletic, linear kid. But where is he in terms of talent compared to this kid? I don't see the dramatic difference, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is there a medical thing that's causing him to fall down? Is it some type of intangibles character thing that I don't know about? Because when I watch this kid's film, he stands out to me as a top 60 player.
Yeah, and this is a guy that keeps bouncing back and forth in the top 100, out of the top 100, and it's like those X factors, Ryan, that he did have a history of injuries. He did at one point think about quitting the game altogether. I know it was injury related, but anytime you throw
that's a scary thing, no question.
That term, that phrase gets people on edge, right? Like, hey, how high of a pick do I want to invest in a guy that contemplated quitting? Because I love this game. This is what I do. Anybody who even thinks about quitting is crazy. If you work in football, that's just your frame of mind, and that's how the front offices think. That there's a reason why every single player gets asked, how passionate are you about football? How much do you love the game? I'm not saying I'm questioning Jonathan Greenard's love for the game, but
no, but it's a legitimate question. I agree.
Ryan, Ryan, I'll get your thoughts quick because we didn't get a chance to speak to him one-on-one. At least I didn't. So, Greenard in, out, your thoughts?
I would have liked to see him in as well. I mean, when I turn on the film of Florida, I agree with Russ. He is I mean, because everyone's starting to talk about Zuniga a lot because he's the more athletic edge rusher coming out of Florida. But I felt Greenard affected the game in a much higher degree. He's got some nice hand usage, advanced hand usage for a kid his age. But also, I mean, I definitely see the other side, though, Rick. We're talking about a guy that you're investing a lot of money into, a lot of time into. And if there are those concerns with how much he is really invested in it and how much he loves the game, it's a tough conversation. So, honestly, I can see in or out for that one. I think his film is in, but, again, without having everything off the field, with hearing those types of things, it's a really hard discussion to have.
It is. It's a tough decision indeed. Ryan, who do you have going inside the top 100? Should be.
Yeah, so one guy that I'm hearing a lot about the last couple of days, and I liked him, at the Senior Bowl. He's a D3 kid, the Ben Barch kid coming out of St. John's. And he is a guy that, has some trouble oversetting at times. You saw it at the Senior Bowl. Can get a little too his upfield shoulder flies out a little bit. He gives up the inside move from time to time, but kind of checks off those boxes when you're talking about he has enough length, he has enough size, he has enough strength, he has enough athletic traits. He could probably play either tackle or guard moving forward. And I know it's a really tough thing to put a guy from a D3 school in the top 100, but I'm hearing I just saw Daniel Jeremiah, a couple other guys that are pretty closely, obviously have a lot of connections into the league that say that he's not going to get out of the second day. So we might be a little too low on him. I personally don't have a terrible problem with where he's ranked in the thing. I just feel like he might be a guy that might be going a little bit, maybe even significantly higher.
I want to disagree. I think we got to find a way to get Ben Barch in there. Even though I wasn't overly impressed at the Senior Bowl, I didn't think he was Ali Marpet caliber. But I think teams are going to bet on the upside, just like the Troutman kid from Dayton.
Yep.
Russ, you got a chance to see Barch, the small school kid. Your thoughts?
Well, I think with Barch, and I think with a lot of small school guys, one of the things that NFL teams end up doing is if they love the small school film, and Barch's film was impressive, just like Marpet's film, and even the Troutman kid, if you love the small school film, the Senior Bowl, yeah, you don't want to see them get destroyed. But as long as they come there and they show that athletically they can stay at that level and that they're not like just overwhelmed with it, the size of it and the talent around them, they feel comfortable saying, you know what, even if he didn't have the best, as long as we feel athletically he's there and that he's not going to be overwhelmed, and we can trust the film we saw. And that's why I think sometimes you see guys where the film may not have been great at the small school, but they flashed elite traits, and then they go to the Senior Bowl and they show those same traits. The teams say, yep, I feel good, even if they weren't great at the Senior Bowl. So I think that's what is helping Barch is he went to the Senior Bowl. It wasn't great, but I think he showed athletically he's fine. So teams feel comfortable that he'll eventually get to his St. John's production as he gets better and better and adjusts to the NFL.
And I'll tell you, it'll be interesting too, because I think once we get Barch in there, I think we'll have more offensive tackles in the top 100 than wide receivers. Everybody's talking about the wide receiver class. I think I could see a trend of teams maybe being a little bit more hesitant to take the receivers because they know they can wait until day 3 and get a guy who slides and falls. All right, we're winding things down, wrapping it up with Russ Landy, Ryan Roberts, Rick Saratella, and Dak Follett. Russ, any other players you got for us here?
No, that was really the one guy that stood out to me, truthfully, of the guys that we didn't have in that top 100. I will say the kid from and we've talked about a little bit, the kid McDonald, the quarterback out of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kid, and I'm not saying he deserves to be a top 100 guy, but to me he's a very intriguing quarterback in that I think when you watched Hawaii film, you saw the athleticism, but you wondered about arm strength, you wondered about release quickness. And I think at the Combine, he at least alleviated the concern of arm strength. I think he at least showed people, hey, you may not have seen me live, especially because very few people make the trip to Hawaii. And unless you're going to go see him play an opponent, you don't really get to see that. So I think a lot of decision makers, that was their first exposure to his arm strength. I think people came away pretty comfortable with the arm strength. I like this kid. He's not a huge kid in terms of when you see him, he actually measures bigger than he looks. He looks like he's a little bit sort of thin-framed. When you see him up close, he's got a solid build in terms of when you measure him. There's something about this kid. I think day 3, you can get some real value for this kid. I like him, but at the same time, I'm not saying he's a top 100 guy. I'm just saying I think this is a kid that isn't getting much hype that I think deserves some round 4 consideration because there's something about this kid. I think he's got a little bit of that it factor.
I like what's there to work with, Ryan. I caught quite a few Hawaii games, and you know,
That's because you don't sleep. You just work all day, all night. That's Rick. He doesn't sleep.
Shout out to Spectrum. You know, Hawaii football, Ryan. I don't know how much you caught of Cole McDonald this year, but I agree with Russ. The skill set, at the very least, is intriguing. It has me excited enough that I want to work with it. I don't know if I'm developing him to be my franchise quarterback, but I think this is a guy who could kind of be a Charlie Whitehurst and come in and you know, provide capable backup play.
Yeah, clipboard Jesus, right? I know McDonald. I watched 5 of his games from this past year, and I will say his tape is a roller coaster. you don't know what's going to happen a lot of times, but I have been on record. I like him, and I like the James Morgan kid from FIU as the kind of day 3 developmental guys. I feel like those are the 2 guys that you really would love to work with in that area. And if I had to give just a quick shout, I think McTelvin Agim from Arkansas is a really interesting player just outside of the top 100. I don't know if I necessarily think he should make that top 100 list, but just a quick shout just because I feel like he was another guy that was a 5-star edge coming out of high school. You know, did okay early on in his Arkansas career, wasn't great, and then they moved him inside this year on a full-time basis, and I felt like there were so many flashes. You saw it again at the Senior Bowl. Not a dominant showing, but you saw that explosive first step. You saw ability to split gaps. I feel like McTelvin Agim, as he continues to get bigger, stronger, gets more acclimated to an interior position, I feel like he's a guy that's really interesting just to kind of keep tabs on.
Yeah, and, you know, some would say he was playing out of position this past year. I think there's a handful of scouts that like him back outside playing that edge, and I think, you know, he proved that, to your point, with that burst in the All-Star game. It was like, whoa, where did this come from? And, you know, he's a guy – I think he's knocking on the door. I agree. I wouldn't have a problem if he was a round 3 guy. I think he's just probably on the outdoor looking. I think he would – my guess would be one of the first players to come off the board on day 3, early round 4. But this has been a fun exercise. We've been debating this top 100 list internally now for quite a bit of time. It's definitely the most time we've taken to do it because we're trying to crush this thing, baby. Let's get it right, get it tight, and tune in next week for the NFL Draft Bible live stream coverage. Of course, I'll be joined by my better-looking duo of Ryan Roberts and Russ Landy. We've got Dakota Follett. Shout out to him. Dakota, we're going to be taking questions throughout the week. Give us a shout-out. Poke your head in here and say hello to the people. Yes.
How you doing, guys?
What's going on, my man? Are we just going to get a logo, or are we going to get a talking head here?
There
we go.
There he is.
Hey, we appreciate all the hard work behind the scenes. Are we going to have the chat room open for questions throughout the week? We'll figure that out some way, somehow.
Yep, we'll figure it out some way, somehow. We'll get it going.
All right.
You know, I'm just trying to figure out, Rick, when we did our chat a few days ago, you said you had no more books to send out, but I said there's 2 right behind you. Now I'm looking behind you, there's none. So did you actually mail those last 2 out? Get those last 2 sales in?
I did. You know, there's a few that got lost in the mail, lost in translation. And I'm actually talking to the publisher because we've had people continue to order the books. So I think we're going to get a little final batch in here that's going to be picked up on Monday, shipped out 2-day shipping. So if you're watching this live stream and you want to get a copy of the Draft Bible book, don't tell anybody I told you this, but we'll have very, very –
And Rick's going to autograph them for you.
Well, yeah. I will.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Rick will sign it for you. Sign mine.
Won't stop. It's another edition of the Infectious Scouting Podcast. We appreciate everybody who buckled up and rode along throughout the season. Again, we'll be back Monday, April 20th. I believe we'll be airing live at 10 a.m. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at NFL Draft Bible for the links and the information. Again, Russell Landy at Russ Landy. Ryan Roberts, of course, at Rise and Draft. Dakota Follett at Dak Follett. And again, it's going to be an extravaganza bonanza. Make sure you come check us out.